The ocean breeze carried the scent of champagne and sea salt through the glass doors of the Turner family's Malibu mansion. Crystal lights shimmered above a crowd of guests dressed to perfection, laughing and clinking glasses to celebrate 5 years of love between Grace Turner and Ryan Carter. Grace stood near the grand staircase, one hand resting on her growing belly, her smile glowing as much as the satin dress hugging her 6-month pregnancy. Everyone said she was lucky, married to a charming executive, the daughter of a billionaire CEO, and soon to be a mother. But under her calm breath, her heart trembled with something else, an uneasy silence from Ryan. He was late. Again. Her father, William Turner, stood by the bar, observing his daughter with quiet concern. He knew Ryan's type: ambitious, polished, but greedy. He had seen it in business. And now, sadly, in family. As the clock hit 8, the massive oak doors opened. Ryan walked in hand with a young woman in a tight red dress, his secretary, Lana Brooks. Gasps swept through the room like a gust of wind. "Sorry we're late," Ryan said smoothly, his arm still around Lana's waist. Traffic was insane. Grace's heart dropped. She forced a smile, trying to believe there was a reasonable explanation. Lana leaned forward with an innocent grin. "Grace, you look radiant. I've been helping Ryan plan this evening for weeks." "For weeks?" Grace blinked. That meant all those late-night calls, those business trips, those whispered laughs. Everything suddenly made sense. William's expression hardened. Evelyn Turner, Grace's mother, gently squeezed his arm, whispering, "Not tonight, Bill. Let her handle this." Grace's hands trembled as she approached Ryan. "You brought your secretary to our wedding anniversary?" she asked softly, her voice cracking. Ryan sighed, exasperated. "Lana is part of my team, Grace. Don't make a scene." The crowd went silent. Lana's smirk widened. She stepped closer to Grace, her perfume suffocating. "Maybe if you weren't always tired," she whispered cruelly, "he wouldn't need company." Grace's eyes widened in disbelief. She took a step back, clutching her stomach. And then, in one horrifying instant, Lana raised her hand and slapped her. The sharp sound echoed through the hall. Grace stumbled, catching herself against a marble pillar. Murmurs rippled through the guests. Ryan didn't help her. He turned toward Lana instead. "That's enough," he said, but not to defend his wife. His tone was protective. Toward Lana, William Turner's glass shattered in his grip. His eyes burned with fury. Grace's breathing quickened. Tears blurred her vision. "Ryan," she whispered. "How could you?" Ryan's only answer was cold indifference. "Let's not ruin the night." Her vision dimmed. The music stopped. Someone screamed her name as she collapsed. And while paramedics rushed in, William Turner looked at his son-in-law and said in a voice that froze the room, "You just destroyed the wrong woman." The sirens faded into the night as the ambulance disappeared down the Malibu coast, leaving the mansion silent, heavy with whispers. Inside, guests drifted toward the exit, their faces pale. The Turner anniversary celebration had turned into a scandal no one would ever forget. Lana Brooks, still standing near the grand staircase, brushed her blonde hair from her face, pretending to be shaken. But her lips curved upward slightly, a poisoned smile hidden behind trembling hands. She whispered to Ryan, "She'll be fine. You overreacted." Ryan loosened his tie, sweat glistening on his forehead. "You shouldn't have touched her, Lana," he muttered, looking around nervously. Lana scoffed. "So what? He's old, Ryan. He'll calm down. He adores his daughter, but he won't risk his company's image for drama." William Turner, still near the shattered glass on the floor, looked at them from across the room. His stare was ice-measured, patient, deadly. Evelyn approached him quietly. "Bill, come home. The doctors said she's stable. Grace needs us." He didn't move. His jaw tightened. "She'll have me. But first," he said slowly, "I'll deal with them." Meanwhile, in the hospital, Grace lay in a white bed under dim light, an IV in her arm. Her breathing was shallow. Olivia Park, her best friend and nurse, wiped her tears. "You're safe, Grace. The baby's heart rate is steady now. Just rest. Grace turned her head weakly. Did he come? She whispered. Olivia hesitated. Ryan? No. He's still at the house. Grace closed her eyes, pain tightening her chest. The man she'd trusted, the father of her child, hadn't even followed the ambulance. A part of her heart began to die quietly. Back at the mansion, Ryan poured himself a drink. This is a mess, he said, pacing. But I'll fix it. Tomorrow I'll send flowers, a statement, something classy. Lana slid closer, tracing her manicured finger along his sleeve. Or, she purred, you let her go. You deserve someone who understands you. Ryan looked at her, torn between fear and desire. You don't understand, Lana. William Turner isn't just my father-in-law, he's my boss. If he turns on me, I lose everything. Lana's smile darkened. Then maybe we make sure he doesn't find a reason to. William finally left the party, his driver waiting at the door. Before he stepped into the car, he turned to his head of security. Find out everything about Lana Brooks, every email, every transaction, every rumor, and keep it quiet. Yes, sir. As the car drove into the night, William's reflection stared back at him from the window. His voice was low but firm. She laid a hand on my daughter, and he defended her. At that same moment, Ryan's phone buzzed. A message from William. We'll talk at 9 a.m. in my office. Don't be late. Lana leaned over his shoulder, reading the text. You see, he's just angry. You'll smooth it over. Ryan swallowed hard. You don't know William Turner. Lana tilted her head, lips curling into that same dangerous smile. Oh, I think I do. Men like him always underestimate women like me. Ryan didn't realize yet William Turner never underestimated anyone. He only waited for the perfect moment to strike. The next morning, gray clouds hung low over Los Angeles. The world looked muted, heavy, like it carried Grace Turner's pain in its sky. Inside street, Monica Hospital, the rhythmic beeping of machines was the only sound. Grace lay motionless, her face pale against the white pillow, her belly gently rising with each fragile breath. Olivia Park entered the room carrying a small tray. Time for your meds, sweetheart, she whispered. Grace opened her eyes slowly, confusion flickering in them. Where am I? You're safe, Olivia said softly. You collapsed last night. You almost lost the baby. But Dr. Patel worked miracles. You and the little one are still holding strong. Grace touched her stomach, tears slipping down her cheeks. I thought it was over. Not yet, Olivia said. You're tougher than you think. As Grace stared out the window, the door opened quietly. Evelyn Turner stepped in, her face worn from a sleepless night. She knelt beside her daughter, holding her hand tightly. Sweetheart, don't worry about anything. Your father is taking care of it. Grace's voice trembled. Ryan. Was he here? Evelyn hesitated, her lips tightening. He sent a text. That's all. Grace turned her face away, a sob escaping her. He stayed with her, didn't he? Her mother didn't answer. The silence spoke for her. Down the hall, William Turner stood with Dr. Patel outside the intensive maternity unit. Doctor, tell me the truth, William said. His voice calm but cold. Dr. Patel sighed. She's stable now, but emotionally, she's fragile. Stress like that could have killed both her and the baby. Whoever caused it, keep them away. William nodded slowly. You have my word. He turned, his eyes sharper than glass. His head of security, Mason, waited nearby. Any news? Yes, sir, Mason said. We accessed Carter's company laptop and emails. He's been funneling money into a dummy account tied to Lana Brooks, kickbacks from vendor contracts. William's jaw clenched. He used my company for his affair. That's not all, Mason added. A junior assistant said Lana bragged about taking Grace's place one day. She's been provoking her for months. William's gaze darkened. I want every detail documented. Not a whisper leaves this building until I say so. Back in the room, Grace tried to sit up, wincing. Olivia supported her gently. Easy. You need rest. I can't rest, Grace said. I need to protect my child. Evelyn leaned closer. Your father won't let anyone hurt you again, honey. He's already acting. Grace's eyes filled with fear. I just wanted a family, Mom. How did everything become like this? Evelyn brushed her hair tenderly. Because sometimes love blinds us until pain opens our eyes. Grace took a deep breath. Then I need to open mine now. Downstairs, William stood by the hospital's glass entrance, watching the rain pour outside. He dialed Ryan's number. Mr. Turner, Ryan answered nervously. Save your excuses, William interrupted, his voice like thunder. You're finished, Ryan. You just don't know it yet. As the call ended, lightning flashed across the sky. Upstairs, Grace whispered to her unborn baby. It's just you and me now, little one. Neither of them knew this storm was only beginning. The morning meeting at Turner Construction began at 9 sharp. The sky over downtown Los Angeles was still gray, mirroring the tension that thickened in the boardroom. William Turner sat at the head of the long glass table, his tailored suit immaculate, his expression unreadable. Beside him stood Mason, the head of security, holding a sealed folder. Ryan Carter walked in, pretending confidence but sweating beneath his crisp shirt. He forced a smile. Good morning, sir. Before we start, I'd like to say... William raised a hand. The room fell silent. Sit down, Ryan. Ryan obeyed, his throat dry. Around them, department heads watched in uneasy silence. The news of the scandal hadn't officially leaked, but whispers traveled fast. Everyone sensed that something catastrophic was coming. William opened the folder slowly, his fingers precise, deliberate. Last night, he began, you publicly humiliated my daughter. You brought your secretary to your wedding anniversary, allowed her to strike your pregnant wife, and you did nothing. But that is not why we're here. Ryan swallowed hard. William's voice stayed calm, almost cold. We're here because I don't mix family with business, and you, Mr. Carter, have blurred both. He slid several printed emails across the table. Ryan glanced down and froze. Copies of transactions, messages with Lana, and vendor kickbacks stared back at him like ghosts. These, William continued, show you've been stealing from this company for over 6 months, redirecting funds through Brooks Consulting owned by your mistress. Gasps filled the room. A few executives exchanged horrified looks. Ryan's mouth opened, but no words came. William leaned forward. You see, I might tolerate foolishness in marriage, but I do not tolerate corruption in my company. Ryan stammered. Sir, please. Ilana handled those invoices. I didn't. William cut him off. You signed every one of them. Don't insult my intelligence. The door opened, and Harper Lee, Turner's corporate attorney, entered. She placed a legal envelope in front of Ryan. Effective immediately, she said. You are suspended pending investigation. Security will escort you out after you surrender your ID and company devices. Ryan's world began to spin. You can't do this. I'm family. William stood, towering over him. You stopped being family the moment you betrayed mine. Ryan's face flushed red. This is about Grace. She's manipulating you. The sound of William's fist slamming the table made everyone jump. Watch your mouth. You laid hands on a Turner woman through your cowardice. You will pay for both your crimes and your cruelty. Ryan sank back into his chair, trembling. You're ruining my life. William's gaze didn't waver. No, Ryan, you did that yourself. As Ryan was led out, whispers followed him down the hall like ghosts of his shattered pride. Mason leaned close to William. Sir, what about the woman? William's eyes hardened. Lana Brooks. Fire her. Lock her access. I want her name erased from every Turner document before sunset. He turned toward the window, overlooking the city skyline. My daughter almost died because of their greed, he murmured. Now they'll understand what loss feels like. Down in the lobby, Ryan's phone buzzed Lana's name glowing on the screen. He answered with shaking hands. Baby, what happened? She whispered. Ryan's voice cracked. It's over, Lana. He knows everything. But Lana didn't sound afraid. She sounded amused. Then maybe, darling, It's time we fight back. Lana Brooks paced across her modern apartment in downtown Los Angeles, fury burning behind her perfect makeup. Her red heels clicked sharply on the marble floor as she spoke into her phone. "You let him humiliate you in front of everyone?" she snapped. "Ryan, you promised me we'd be untouchable." On the other end, Ryan's voice was strained. "You don't understand, Lana. William has everything. Emails, contracts, payments. I'm suspended. He'll destroy me if I don't act fast." Lana stopped pacing and stared at her reflection in the window overlooking the skyline. "Then we destroy him first." Ryan laughed bitterly. "And how exactly do you plan to take down William Turner? He owns half of California." Lana's eyes gleamed. "We don't go after him. We go after Grace." Ryan's silence stretched for a beat too long. "Lana, she's in the hospital, pregnant. Leave her out of this." "Don't get sentimental now," she hissed. "If Grace files for divorce, you lose everything: money, position, your reputation. But if we make her look unstable, hysterical, someone unfit to run Turner Construction, her father will focus on saving face, not saving her." Ryan rubbed his forehead. "You're insane." "No, I'm strategic," she said coldly. "You think I worked this hard to end up a fired secretary?" "I'm not done yet, Ryan. Not even close." She ended the call, her mind racing. Within hours, she contacted a gossip journalist. She knew a man who'd do anything for the right price. "I have a story," she told him sweetly, "about a pregnant heiress and her family secrets." Meanwhile, in Street Monica Hospital, Grace awoke to the faint sound of rain against the window. Olivia adjusted her blanket. "Try to sleep. You need peace, not headlines." Grace frowned. "Headlines?" Olivia bit her lip. "You should rest." But a few hours later, Grace saw it herself, the morning news on TV, showing her photo with a bold caption: "Turner heiress suffers breakdown after violent outburst at anniversary party." Grace's stomach dropped. What is this?" Evelyn burst into the room with the newspaper. Tears filled Grace's eyes. "They're trying to make me look crazy." William arrived moments later, face carved from stone. "I'm already on it," he said, setting his phone down. "The article was published by an independent blog. We'll trace it." Grace's voice shook. "Dad, they're not just trying to ruin me. They want to destroy the company." William's hand tightened on hers. "Then we'll make sure they both regret ever breathing." Across town, Lana smirked as she watched the chaos unfold on her phone screen. "Checkmate," she whispered. But Mason, Turner's head of security, was already one step ahead. He had tapped into the blog's server, and within hours, he found the IP address tied to Lana's apartment. He walked into William's office with a small smirk. "Sir, we found your leak." William looked up from his desk. "Good. Prepare everything. When we strike, it'll be in public just like they humiliated my daughter." And somewhere in that same city, Lana poured herself a glass of wine, completely unaware that her downfall had already begun. The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and soft rain. Grace Turner sat up in bed, her trembling fingers scrolling through the endless flood of gossip articles on her phone. Every headline was a dagger: "Heiress loses control, pregnant wife attacks secretary, Turner family in crisis." Evelyn gently took the phone from her daughter's hands. "Enough, sweetheart. Don't read those lies. They'll poison your heart." Grace looked at her mother, eyes hollow. "Mom, everyone's going to believe it. They already think I'm the spoiled wife who snapped." Before Evelyn could answer, the door burst open. Ryan Carter stood there, looking tired, desperate, and yet somehow still arrogant. He wore the same suit from yesterday, his tie gone, his eyes red. Grace froze. "What are you doing here?" Ryan stepped inside slowly, ignoring Evelyn's glare. "I came to talk. We need to fix this before it gets worse." "We?" Grace echoed. "There's no we anymore." "Grace, listen," he said, forcing calm into his voice. "I didn't leak that story. Lana just wanted to protect me. Things got out of hand." Grace laughed bitterly, the sound sharp and broken. "Protect you? She slapped me in front of everyone. She tried to ruin me. And you," her voice cracked, "you stood there and defended her." Ryan stepped closer. I was shocked, all right. I didn't know what to do. Evelyn stood between them. Get out, Ryan. You're not welcome here. But Grace lifted a hand. No, Mom. Let him talk. Her tone was cold now, steady. Tell me, Ryan, did you ever love me? Or was it just about my father's company? He hesitated, guilt flickering across his face. I did love you, but things changed. You changed. Grace's tears spilled over. I changed because I was pregnant. Because I thought we were building a family. He looked away, ashamed. I made mistakes, but we can fix this. If you help me with William, we can come out of this together. Grace's voice dropped to a whisper. You really came here to save yourself, not me. At that moment, the door opened again. William Turner entered, his presence filling the room like thunder. His calm fury was almost unbearable. Ryan, he said quietly, you've overstayed your welcome. Ryan turned, panic flickering in his eyes. Sir, please, I just came to apologize. William interrupted. Apologies mean nothing after betrayal. He stepped closer, his tone deadly. You used my daughter's trust, my company's name, and my patience. You have 24 hours to vacate the Turner property. After that, I'll let the law handle you. Ryan's jaw tightened. You can't just erase me from your family. William's eyes burned. You were never family. You were a mistake I allowed too long. Security appeared behind Ryan. Evelyn turned away as they escorted him out. Grace collapsed back against her pillow, tears streaming. William sat beside her, holding her hand gently. No more stress, sweetheart. He's gone now. Grace whispered. No, Dad. He's not gone. Not yet. People like him always come back when they realize what they've lost. Outside the hospital, Ryan's phone rang again. Lana's voice purred through the receiver. Don't worry, darling. I've got a plan. And it starts tonight. Night fell over Los Angeles, the city glittering with deceit beneath the rain. Inside Lana Brooks's apartment, the air smelled of wine and cigarette smoke. She sat cross-legged on the couch, laptop open, surrounded by folders and stolen documents from Turner Construction. Ryan paced behind her like a caged animal. This is insane, he muttered. William already has the board against me. If he presses charges, I'm done. Lana didn't even look up. Then we make sure he doesn't have the chance. Ryan frowned. You keep saying that, but how? He's untouchable. You don't beat William Turner, you survive him. She finally turned her gaze to him, cold and calculating. You're wrong. Every empire has a weak spot. His is Grace. Ryan stiffened. You stay away from her. She's pregnant. Haven't you done enough? Lana laughed softly. Please, spare me the moral speech. You didn't care about her feelings when you slept in my bed. Ryan's face flushed red. That was different. No, she said sharply. That was real. She's just the rich princess who got everything handed to her. You and I, we earned our place. Ryan rubbed his temples, guilt warring with fear. You're going too far, Lana. I'm already too far to stop, she replied. You're either with me or against me. She turned her laptop around. On the screen glowed a confidential company file, Turner Construction's new sustainable housing project, the one Grace's father had been preparing to hand over to her. If this project leaks, Lana said, the stock price will plummet. William's empire will shake. Grace will look incompetent before she even takes control. Ryan's eyes widened. You're planning corporate sabotage? That's a felony. Lana smirked. So is embezzlement, darling. We're already criminals. Might as well win. Across the city, Grace lay awake in her hospital bed, staring at the ceiling. Her father's warning echoed in her head. You can't trust Ryan anymore. But deep down, she knew something darker was coming. She reached for her phone, typing a message to her father. Dad, please be careful. I don't think this is over. At that exact moment, in William Turner's penthouse office, Mason approached with a USB drive. Sir, we found something interesting, he said. An external breach attempt. Someone tried to download files from our server at 9:45 p.m. William's eyes narrowed. From where? An apartment registered to Lana Brooks. William's voice dropped. She's still playing games. Mason nodded. What do you want me to do? William looked out at the storm-lashed skyline. Let her finish digging her hole. Then we'll bury her in it. Meanwhile, Lana sent the stolen data to a journalist, attaching Grace's name in the subject line. This will make her the face of the scandal, she said. By the time they figure it out, it'll be too late. Ryan stared at her, realizing the depth of her madness. You're going to destroy us all. She smiled, sipping her wine. Not us, baby. Just her. Thunder shook the city. In the hospital, Grace flinched, clutching her stomach. She didn't know why, but she felt danger coming closer. And as lightning struck the coast, Lana pressed send, unleashing a storm that would change every life it touched. Morning light spilled across Los Angeles, but inside Turner Construction headquarters, it felt like midnight. Phones rang nonstop. Reporters crowded the lobby, and employees whispered in panic. On every business news site, the same headline screamed in bold: Turner Construction leaks confidential green project. CEO's daughter involved. In his office, William Turner read the article in silence, jaw locked. Across from him, Harper Lee, the company's attorney, adjusted her glasses nervously. They're claiming the files came from Grace's credentials, sir. The timestamps match her hospital stay, but someone used her account remotely. William's voice was calm but cold. Which means someone planted her name. Yes, Harper said, but the public doesn't know that. Investors are panicking. The stock dropped 8% overnight. Mason entered, holding a tablet. Sir, the breach was routed through an IP address tied to Lana Brooks. She's been feeding documents to a blog that connects to a media network in New York. Ryan Carter's name appears in 2 message threads, but nothing directly incriminating yet. William set the tablet down, his hands steady. Then we'll make it direct. Pull every email. Trace every payment. I want this evidence airtight before I go public. Meanwhile, at Street Monica Hospital, Grace turned on the television and saw her own face plastered on national news. The anchor's voice cut like glass. Sources claim Turner heiress Grace Turner accessed restricted company data while under medical care. Allegedly, this breach triggered a multi-million-dollar loss. Grace's chest tightened. No, that's not true. Evelyn rushed to her side, turning off the screen. Don't look at that garbage. Your father's handling it. But they're saying it's me, Mom. They're saying I leaked confidential data from my hospital bed. Her voice cracked, and she clutched her stomach. Olivia ran in, checking her vitals. Grace, breathe. Stress can trigger contractions. Grace tried to calm down, but tears kept falling. Why are they doing this to me? Evelyn's voice shook. Because they're afraid of your strength, honey. You're your father's legacy. That's what they want to destroy. At that moment, William called. His voice, steady as steel, came through the speaker. Grace, listen to me. Don't let them see you break. We're close to proving who did this. Grace wiped her tears. Dad, it's Lana and Ryan. I can feel it. I know, he said. And they just made their last mistake. Across town, Lana sat in a cafe, watching the chaos unfold on her phone. The blog post she sent had gone viral. Comments flooded in mockery, outrage, sympathy. She smiled, stirring her coffee. Perfect, she whispered. Ryan sat opposite her, pale and shaking. You framed a pregnant woman. This is beyond wrong, Lana. She tilted her head. Wrong? No, Ryan. This is power. When they believe Grace is guilty, her father will be too busy saving face to destroy us. He leaned closer, voice trembling. You don't understand William Turner. He doesn't panic, he plans. Lana's smirk faltered for a moment, but she quickly regained her cool. Then let him plan. By the time he moves, the world will already believe the story. Back at Turner headquarters, Mason rushed in with breaking news. Sir, the journalist who ran the article just received an anonymous payment from an account linked to Ryan Carter's private card. William stood, his expression darkening. He's done. He turned toward the window, the city reflecting in his eyes. They wanted war. Now they'll get one. And somewhere in Los Angeles, Lana's phone buzzed a notification that would shatter her illusion of control forever. The following morning, Turner Construction Headquarters felt like the calm before a hurricane. Every executive knew something monumental was coming. At precisely 9 o'clock, William Turner entered the boardroom, his expression carved from stone. Mason followed, carrying 2 thick folders, and Harper Lee was already seated with her laptop open. William didn't waste a second. "The time for silence is over," he said. "We've confirmed everything. The leak, the payments, the betrayal, it all traces back to Ryan Carter and Lana Brooks." Gasps spread around the room. Harper clicked her mouse, projecting the evidence onto the screen. Screenshots of Ryan's secret payments, email chains from Lana's address, and encrypted messages linking them to the journalist. One of the board members spoke hesitantly. "Sir, if this becomes public, it could damage the company's reputation further." William looked him straight in the eye. "The only thing that damages a company more than scandal is silence. We expose the truth on our terms." He turned to Mason. "Prepare the press conference, 1 hour, and make sure Ryan and Lana are served before it starts." Meanwhile, at Lana's apartment, she was applying lipstick in front of the mirror when there was a loud knock. Ryan opened the door to find 2 uniformed officers holding envelopes. "Ryan Carter and Lana Brooks," one officer said. "You've been served charges of corporate fraud, defamation, and data theft." Lana froze, the color draining from her face. "What? That's impossible." Ryan's hands shook as he took his copy. "He's going public," he muttered. "He wouldn't dare," Lana whispered, but her voice lacked conviction. "Oh, he would," Ryan said grimly. "You don't know William Turner like I do." At the hospital, Grace sat up in bed, watching the press conference live on TV. Her heart pounded as her father stepped up to the podium, facing dozens of cameras. "Yesterday," William began, his tone calm and commanding, "false information was released, attacking both my daughter and this company's integrity. Today, we restore the truth." Behind him, a massive screen displayed the evidence. Every transaction, every message, every lie. Reporters gasped. Flashes lit the room like lightning. Ryan Carter and his accomplice Lana Brooks orchestrated a data theft scheme that framed my daughter while she was under medical care, William continued. "The law will handle their punishment, but I will personally ensure my daughter's name is cleared." Grace covered her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Dad," Evelyn hugged her tightly. "He's doing this for you, sweetheart." In the city center, Lana and Ryan watched the broadcast in horror. Every secret, every scheme laid bare for the world to see. Their phones exploded with calls, messages, and threats. Ryan turned on Lana. "You said we'd be untouchable." Lana's mascara streaked down her face. "He can't destroy us both. I can fix this if you just trust me." Ryan's expression twisted with rage. "I trusted you, and look where it got me." He stormed out, slamming the door so hard that the mirror cracked. Lana stared at her reflection shattered, just like her plan. Back at the Turner press conference, William ended with quiet authority. "My daughter's honor is worth more than any stock or profit, and anyone who touches my family will face consequences they never imagined." The room erupted with applause and flashing cameras. Grace smiled weakly through her tears. For the first time in months, she felt safe, but deep inside, she knew it wasn't over. Because monsters like Lana don't disappear quietly. They strike again when you least expect it. Lana Brooks sat in her dark apartment, curtains drawn, her makeup smeared, her phone lighting up with endless notifications. Every news outlet in the country had her name splashed across the headlines. Turner scandal. Secretary behind corporate betrayal. Her career was over. Her reputation shattered. But instead of remorse, what filled her heart was pure, consuming rage. She threw her wine glass against the wall, shards scattering across the floor. "He humiliated me," she whispered to herself, trembling. "William Turner destroyed everything I built." Her voice rose into a scream. "And Grace, she took everything that should have been mine." Her reflection glared back at her from the cracked mirror. "No," she hissed, "I'm not done yet." Across town, Grace Turner was finally allowed to return home. The doctors agreed her condition had stabilized, though stress was still her greatest enemy. William and Evelyn accompanied her to the Malibu estate, ensuring privacy and security. As the car rolled through the gates, Grace looked out the window, her eyes filled with a quiet strength. "It doesn't feel like home anymore," she said softly. Evelyn squeezed her hand. "Home isn't walls, honey. It's who you let inside." Inside the mansion, everything had been cleaned, redecorated, every trace of Ryan removed. Grace paused by the grand staircase where the nightmare began. For a moment, she could still hear the echo of that slap, still feel the humiliation, the betrayal. William stood beside her. "You survived it," he said gently. "Now it's time to rebuild." Grace nodded. "For my child." Meanwhile, Lana sat at her computer, typing furiously. She still had access to Ryan's old accounts and messages, proof that he'd stolen funds long before she joined him. If she couldn't win, she'd drag everyone down with her. She opened her email and began writing an anonymous tip to several journalists. "What the public doesn't know," she typed, "is that William Turner covered up years of fraud to protect his family." She attached old company data, twisting facts into lies. Just as she hit send, her screen went black. A pop-up message appeared. "Access terminated. System breach detected." Her heart pounded. What the hell? In William's office, Mason smirked. "We traced her devices. She tried to upload falsified data. I shut her down remotely." William's voice was calm. "Good. Now let's make sure she can never touch another file again." That evening, Ryan showed up at Lana's door, his face pale and desperate. "We need to leave the city," he said. "William's pressing charges. If we stay, we're finished." Lana laughed bitterly. "Finished? You think running will save you?" "I'm not hiding, Ryan. I'm fighting." He grabbed her wrist. "Lana, stop this. You've already lost." She yanked free, eyes blazing. "No, you lost. I'm just getting started." At that same moment, Mason's team arrived at the building. The elevator dinged, boots echoing in the hall. Ryan's eyes widened. "Oh, God, they're here." Before Lana could react, the door burst open. Security stormed in with police officers behind them. "Lana Brooks," one announced. "You're under arrest for cybercrime and obstruction of justice." Lana backed away, eyes wild. "You can't take me. They're lying." William's voice came through the officer's radio, cold and final. "Bring her in." As they handcuffed her, Lana screamed, her voice echoing through the corridor. "This isn't over. She'll never be happy. None of them will." But as the police led her out, the world finally saw what she truly was: not a victim, but a villain unmasked. Sand. The news of Lana Brooks's arrest spread like wildfire. Within hours, social media turned from mocking Grace Turner to praising her strength. Headlines flipped overnight. "Pregnant heiress, proven innocent. Turner family clears their name." But for Grace, vindication didn't feel like victory. It just felt quiet. At the Malibu estate, sunlight filtered through the tall windows. The ocean shimmered beyond the cliffs. For the first time in weeks, Grace walked through her home without trembling. Every step reminded her that she had survived what most women would have crumbled under. Evelyn brought her a cup of tea, smiling softly. "The world finally knows the truth, sweetheart." Grace sipped slowly. "It doesn't erase what happened, Mom. It doesn't erase that night." William entered, holding a folder. He looked tired, but proud. "Justice takes time," he said, setting the folder on the table. "But it's coming." Lana's bail was denied. Ryan's trial starts in 2 weeks. Grace looked down, her hand instinctively resting on her belly. "I don't want revenge, Dad. I just want peace for me and my baby." William's expression softened. "You've already won that peace, Grace. You just haven't felt it yet." Later that afternoon, Grace wandered outside to the garden. The sea breeze kissed her face, the waves crashing far below. For months, she had felt like a ghost in her own life, defined only by pain. Now, for the first time, she felt her baby kick strong, steady, alive. She smiled through tears. "You're telling me to keep going, huh?" she whispered. "But peace rarely lasts long." That evening, Olivia called from the hospital. "Grace, I think you should come in. Dr. Patel wants to check your blood pressure. It's been fluctuating since the stress." Grace agreed, not wanting to risk anything. William insisted on driving her. Evelyn followed, clutching Grace's overnight bag. Halfway to Los Angeles, Grace gasped, gripping her stomach. "Dad, the baby's coming." William's hands tightened on the wheel. "Hold on, sweetheart. We're almost there." The next hour was a blur of flashing lights, rushing nurses, and urgent voices. Dr. Patel met them at the entrance. "She's in active labor. Get her prepped." Grace was wheeled down the hallway, her breathing fast but steady. "Please, just make sure my baby's okay," she whispered. "You both will be fine," Dr. Patel promised. Outside, William stood frozen, watching through the glass as nurses surrounded his daughter. Evelyn held his hand tightly. "She's strong, Bill, just like you." He nodded, but his throat was tight. Hours passed. Rain began to fall outside the hospital, soft and cleansing. Then, just before midnight, a cry echoed through the maternity ward, tiny, fierce, full of life. Dr. Patel stepped out moments later, smiling beneath her mask. "It's a girl." William's eyes filled with tears. Evelyn sobbed into her hands. "A granddaughter." Inside the room, Grace cradled the newborn against her chest, whispering softly, "Welcome to the world, Lily. You're my second chance." For the first time in months, peace finally found her, not through revenge, but through love. But while Grace held her baby, far across town, Ryan Carter sat alone in a motel room, plotting one last desperate move. Rain hammered the roof of a cheap motel on the edge of Los Angeles. Inside room 212, Ryan Carter sat hunched on the bed, his hair disheveled, his eyes bloodshot. The once polished executive now looked like a ghost, wearing a wrinkled suit. Empty coffee cups and crumpled papers littered the nightstand. The television flickered with news updates. Turner scandal ends. William Turner's daughter, cleared of all wrongdoing. Former executive faces trial. Ryan's fists clenched. "Trial," he muttered bitterly. "Like I'm some criminal." He threw the remote at the screen, shattering it. Silence filled the room except for his own ragged breathing. He reached for his phone. Every call went straight to voicemail. Lana's number disconnected. His former co-workers blocked. He scrolled through old photos of Grace, her smile at their wedding, the ultrasound she'd sent him months ago. A strange mix of guilt and resentment boiled inside him. "She had everything handed to her," he whispered. "And I'm the one losing everything." Just then, there was a knock at the door. Ryan tensed. "Who is it?" A voice answered softly. "Delivery." When he opened the door, an envelope slid across the floor. No one was there. Curious, Ryan picked it up. Inside was a court notice official, cold, final. Divorce finalized. Custody rights revoked. He crumpled the paper in his hands. "She took my child too," he spat, pacing the room. "William made sure I have nothing left." His phone buzzed a new message from an unknown number. "They'll ruin you in court, unless you ruin them first." Ryan froze. "Who is this?" he typed. The reply came instantly. "An old friend who still hates the Turners." He hesitated, heart pounding. Was it Lana, or someone worse? The next message appeared. "Meet me tomorrow night, Pier 19, midnight. Bring everything you have on Turner Construction. Let's finish what they started." Ryan stared at the screen, torn between fear and temptation. He had no allies, no future, but revenge was a poison that still burned sweetly on his tongue. Meanwhile, at Street Monica Hospital, Grace rocked baby Lily in her arms. Evelyn sat nearby, humming softly. William entered quietly, smiling at the sight of them. "She's perfect," he said. Grace smiled tiredly. "She's my reason to live, Dad." He kissed her forehead. "Then live well, sweetheart. That's how you win." As they spoke, Mason walked in, whispering something to William. The older man's expression darkened. "Ryan's gone off the radar," Mason said. "He emptied what was left in his account and disappeared from his apartment this morning." William's jaw tightened. "Find him." Mason nodded. already on it. Grace overheard. "Dad, let him go. Please. He can't hurt us anymore." William looked at her tenderly. "Maybe not you, Grace, but men who lose everything often think they have nothing left to lose." That night, as Grace fell asleep beside her newborn, rain tapped softly against the hospital window. Across town, Ryan stood on the edge of Pier 19, phone in hand, waiting in the dark. A car approached slowly. Headlights flashed once, twice, then stopped. A woman's silhouette stepped out, her voice cutting through the storm. "Hello, Ryan. Did you really think I'd vanish that easily?" It was Lana, back from the shadows, and more dangerous than ever. The wind screamed across Pier 19, whipping through the fog as waves crashed against the wooden posts. Ryan Carter stood frozen, rainwater running down his face, mixing with the bitterness in his eyes. From the shadows, Lana Brooks stepped forward in a black coat, her heels echoing sharply against the wet boards. He couldn't believe it. "You," he hissed. "You're supposed to be in jail." Lana smiled, her lipstick smeared, her eyes wild. "Oh, Ryan, you really thought they could keep me there?" Money talks. The right lawyer, the right connections, and here I am. Ryan stepped back, cautious. "You're insane. Do you know what you've done? William's watching everything. He'll destroy you." Lana laughed, the sound sharp and unhinged. "He already tried. But I'm still breathing. And as long as I'm breathing, I'm dangerous." She moved closer, pulling something from her bag, a flash drive glinting under the pier lights. "This," she said, holding it up, "is our ticket back. Every dark secret Turner Construction ever buried. And you and I were going to use it." Ryan frowned. "What's on it?" Lana smirked. "Financial reports, offshore accounts, everything that could make William Turner look like the criminal he accused us of being. Some of it real. Some edited." Ryan shook his head. "No, I'm done. I've lost enough because of you." Lana's smile faded. "Don't be stupid, Ryan. You think you can just walk away? You owe me. I saved you once, remember? When you wanted to expose Grace's pregnancy to the press, I told you to stop. I protected you." He stepped closer, his voice rising. "Protected me? You destroyed me. You cost me my marriage, my job, my life." For a moment, silence filled the pier. Rain poured harder, the ocean roaring below. Lana's face twisted with fury. "You think you were the victim?" she screamed. "I was supposed to be the next Mrs. Carter. You promised me everything, and then you hid behind your wife like a coward." Ryan clenched his fists. "We're both broken because of you." Her eyes glimmered with madness. "No, Ryan, we're broken because of her. Grace Turner. The perfect wife, the perfect daughter. She took what I deserved." Ryan looked at her, truly seeing her for the first time not as a lover, but as a monster made from jealousy and greed. "You're sick, Lana. I'm not doing this." He turned to leave. Lana's voice turned venomous. "Walk away, and I'll make sure Grace never sleeps again." "That baby," he spun around, fury exploding. "Don't you dare say her name." Before either could react, a voice echoed from behind. "Step away from each other." Spotlights flared through the fog. Mason and 2 Turner security agents emerged from the darkness, guns raised. "Ryan Carter, Lana Brooks, you're under arrest for conspiracy and attempted extortion." Lana froze, the flash drive slipping from her hand, clattering onto the pier. Ryan's shoulders slumped, realizing it was over. Mason stepped forward, retrieving the drive. "You two never learn," he said coldly. "William Turner doesn't lose twice." As the officers handcuffed them, Lana screamed, her voice slicing through the storm. "She'll never be happy. None of them will." And for the first time, Ryan didn't look angry, just defeated, whispering to himself, maybe happiness was never meant for people like us. Morning sunlight streamed through the wide glass windows of the Turner Malibu estate, filling the room with warmth and hope. Grace Turner sat in the nursery, rocking baby Lily gently, humming a soft tune. The scent of lavender filled the air, and for the first time in what felt like forever, there was peace. William stood by the doorway, watching quietly. The lines on his face had softened. "You look like your mother when you hold her." he said. Grace smiled faintly. I hope she grows up to be more like Mom. She deserves a calm heart. William stepped closer. And strength like yours. Grace looked up, her eyes calm yet reflective. Strength feels heavy sometimes. Real strength always does, he replied gently. Downstairs, Evelyn and Noah were setting up for breakfast. The whole house smelled of pancakes and coffee, simple comforts that felt like miracles after months of fear. Olivia had spent the night over to help Grace with the baby, and her laughter echoed through the hallways like sunshine. When Grace finally came downstairs, everyone clapped softly. Noah grinned. Grace chuckled. Don't make me blush. I haven't slept in 3 days. Evelyn handed her a plate. Eat, sweetheart. You need your strength back. Lily will need a strong mother and, maybe, one day, a strong CEO. Grace raised an eyebrow. CEO? I'm not sure I'm ready for that, Mom. William joined them at the table, sipping his coffee. You will be soon. I've been talking to the board. The company needs a new face, someone with integrity, compassion, and resilience. Someone like you. Grace froze. Dad. You mean me? He nodded. It's time. You've endured scandal, betrayal, and pain. But you faced it all with grace. Your name suits you. Her eyes filled with tears. I don't know if I can lead a company, Dad. I barely managed to lead myself through this mess. William reached across the table, taking her hand. You don't lead because you're fearless. You lead because you've known fear and still move forward. The room went silent. Grace looked down at Lily, sleeping peacefully in her arms. Then I'll do it, she whispered. For her. Later that afternoon, Grace walked along the beach behind the estate. The ocean breeze tangled her hair, and seagulls cried above her. Every wave reminded her of what she had lost and what she had become. She thought of Ryan's betrayal, Lana's cruelty, her own tears and terror. Yet somehow, all of it had led her here. Olivia joined her, holding 2 mugs of tea. You okay? Grace nodded. For the first time. I think I am. Olivia smiled. Then maybe it's time you start living again, not surviving living. Grace looked out at the endless horizon, whispering, yeah, maybe it is. Just then, her phone buzzed a message from an unknown number. Miss Turner, this is Alexander Hale from Hale Industries. I'd like to discuss a potential partnership. I believe our visions align. Grace read it twice, her heart skipping slightly. She smiled. A new beginning, she said softly, but she had no idea that this man, the mysterious Alexander Hale, would soon change her life in ways she never imagined. 2 weeks later, Grace Turner found herself standing in the glass-walled conference room of Hale Industries, the most prestigious investment firm in San Francisco. Sunlight streamed across the skyline, reflecting off the sleek surfaces like liquid gold. Grace adjusted her blazer, trying to ignore the thumping of her heart. Across the table sat Alexander Hale, the billionaire entrepreneur who had requested this meeting. He was tall, composed, with sharp eyes that seemed to read more than words. Miss Turner, he began, offering a warm smile. Thank you for coming on such short notice. Grace shook his hand firmly. Thank you for inviting me, Mr. Hale. My father spoke highly of your company. Please, he said, motioning for her to sit. Call me Alex. Grace nodded, settling in as he slid a document toward her. I've followed your family's work for years, he said. But more importantly, I've followed your story, the resilience, the dignity under fire. Most people would have crumbled. You didn't. Grace looked at him, slightly startled. You read about that? He leaned back. The entire business world did. You didn't just survive a scandal, you turned it into strength. That's the kind of partner I want. Grace opened the folder. It outlined a partnership between Hale Industries and Turner Construction, a sustainable housing project aimed at rebuilding communities across the West Coast. It was ambitious, visionary, and deeply personal. This could change lives, she murmured. Alex smiled. That's the idea. You see, money builds structures, but integrity builds futures. And from what I've seen, Miss Turner, You have both. Grace met his gaze, a mix of gratitude and curiosity flickering in her eyes. You're not like most investors, are you? He chuckled. No, I prefer working with people who've been through storms they understand value. For the first time in months, Grace felt seen not as a victim, but as a capable woman, worthy of respect. The meeting lasted over an hour, filled with ideas, sketches, and laughter she hadn't realized she'd missed. When it ended, Alex stood, extending his hand again. I'll send over the official proposal tomorrow. But something tells me this partnership will be more than business. Grace hesitated, smiling politely. Let's keep it professional, Mr. Hale. He grinned, his voice gentle but teasing. For now. That evening, Grace returned to the Malibu estate, her mind still buzzing with possibility. Evelyn met her at the door. So, how was it? Grace smiled softly, unexpected, inspiring. William entered the room just then. Alexander Hale, huh? He's young, successful, and single. I know that look, Grace. Grace laughed. Dad, it was just a meeting. He winked. That's how every story starts. Later that night, after Lily fell asleep, Grace sat on her balcony overlooking the moonlit ocean. Her phone buzzed with a message from Alex. It was great meeting you today. I admire your courage. Dinner next week? Purely business, of course. Grace typed back before she could stop herself. Business sounds good. She set the phone down, a faint smile tugging at her lips. For the first time in a long time, her heart felt light, like maybe life was offering her a second chance. But somewhere deep inside, she couldn't shake the feeling that this partnership would lead to something far greater than either of them imagined. The restaurant sat high above San Francisco Bay, its floor-to-ceiling windows glowing with the city lights below. Grace Turner stepped out of the elevator, her heart pounding beneath her elegant navy dress. It was supposed to be a business dinner, yet she had checked her reflection 3 times before leaving Malibu. Maybe, she admitted to herself, she wanted to look confident like the woman she was becoming. A waiter guided her to a corner table where Alexander Hale was already waiting. He rose as she approached, his smile warm and steady. Grace, he greeted, pulling out her chair. You look ready to take over the world. She laughed softly. Let's start with rebuilding one small part of it. They ordered wine and sea bass. For the first few minutes, the conversation stayed professional numbers, deadlines, sustainability models, but somewhere between the appetizers and the main course, the tone shifted. Alex set his glass down. You know, most people in your position would have disappeared after what happened. Public scrutiny like that can crush a person. Grace took a slow breath. It almost did. But then I looked at my daughter, and I realized she deserves a mother who isn't afraid of the world. He nodded, admiration flickering in his eyes. That's strength most men I know can't even dream of. Grace smiled faintly. Strength is just pain that learned how to stand up. They talked for hours about architecture, philanthropy, family. Alex told her about losing his parents young, about building his company from scratch, with nothing but risk and caffeine. Grace shared how she used to design homes for people she'd never meet, trying to give them the sense of peace she never had herself. By the time dessert arrived, laughter filled the space between them. It felt easy, dangerously easy. When the waiter left, Alex leaned forward slightly. Grace, can I ask you something not on the business agenda? She hesitated, smiling cautiously. Depends on the question. He studied her face. Are you ready to trust again? Not just in business, but in people. Her breath caught. That's a complicated question. I like complicated, he said gently. Grace looked out the window at the glittering water, her reflection merging with the city lights. I don't know if I can. I was married to someone who made me believe love was weakness. I can't go back to that. Alex's voice softened. Maybe love isn't weakness. Maybe it's the proof that you've survived everything designed to break you. The words lingered in the air, heavy and honest. Grace felt something stir, a warmth she hadn't allowed herself in months. She forced a small laugh. You're dangerously good at this, Mr. Hale. You might end up ruining my carefully built walls. He smiled. Maybe they're not meant to stay up forever. Outside, the fog rolled in over the bay, wrapping the city in silver mist. As they stood to leave, Alex helped her with her coat. "Dinner next week?" Grace hesitated, then nodded. "Dinner," she said quietly. "But strictly professional, until it's not." And as she walked away into the cool night air, she realized that for the first time since the betrayal, her heart wasn't afraid, it was alive. The partnership between Turner Construction and Hale Industries was announced 2 months later. The press called it the alliance that would redefine sustainable architecture. Grace Turner had officially stepped into her father's shadow, no longer just his daughter, but a leader in her own right. That morning, the boardroom buzzed with excitement as Grace presented the project plans. Her calm authority filled the space. When she spoke, people listened, not because she demanded attention, but because she had earned it. Alexander Hale sat beside her, listening, his gaze filled with quiet admiration. Every word she said reminded him of why he'd taken the risk of merging their companies. When the meeting ended, applause echoed through the room. William Turner, watching from the back, smiled with pride. "You did well, Grace," he said as the crowd dispersed. She turned to him, her eyes bright. "Thanks, Dad. I finally feel like I belong here." He nodded, his voice warm. "You always did. You just needed to believe it." Later that day, Alex invited Grace for coffee in the company lounge overlooking the city skyline. The sunlight reflected off the skyscrapers, bathing the room in gold. "To new beginnings," he said, raising his cup. Grace clinked her cup gently against his. "And to unlikely partnerships." They both laughed, and for a while, the air between them was light and comfortable. But underneath, something deeper pulsed, an understanding neither dared to voice. Alex leaned back. "You know, when I first read about you, I thought you were just another heiress caught in a scandal, but meeting you, I realized how wrong I was." Grace tilted her head. "And what do you think now?" "I think you're the strongest person I've ever met," he said simply. Her heart skipped a beat. "Careful, Mr. Hale. Flattery could be mistaken for something else." He smiled. "Maybe it's not flattery." For a moment, their eyes met. The hum of the city below seemed to fade, leaving only the sound of two hearts rediscovering what it meant to feel alive again. Grace looked away first, trying to steady herself. "I'm still learning how to trust," she said softly. "Then let me earn it," he replied. "No rush, no expectations." Grace smiled faintly, touched by his patience. "You make it sound easy." "It's not," Alex admitted, "but good things rarely are." That night, Grace returned home to the Malibu estate, feeling a quiet contentment. Evelyn rocked baby Lily to sleep in the living room. "You're glowing, sweetheart," her mother teased. "I haven't seen that smile since before all the chaos." Grace laughed. "It's just work, Mom. A good day." Evelyn winked knowingly. "Sometimes good days start with good people." Outside, the ocean shimmered under the moonlight. Grace stepped onto the balcony, letting the wind carry away her doubts. She whispered to herself, "Maybe I deserve this peace. Maybe I deserve love again." Back in the city, Alex stood at his office window, looking out into the night, replaying her smile in his mind. He didn't know where this connection would lead, but something told him this partnership was written not in contracts, but in fate. And neither of them knew that love, the one thing Grace thought she had lost forever, was already finding its way back into her life. It had been 6 peaceful months since the merger between Turner Construction and Hale Industries. The company was thriving, baby Lily was growing fast, and Grace Turner finally felt like her life had settled into something close to happiness. But peace has a way of trembling before a storm, and Grace was about to feel the past knock on her door again. It started with a phone call. She was in her Malibu office reviewing project designs when her assistant, Claire, stepped in, her face pale. "Miss Turner," she said softly, "there's a man on the line claiming to be from your ex-husband's legal team." Grace's pen froze midair. "Ryan?" she whispered. Claire nodded. "He says it's urgent. He wants to meet." Grace's heart skipped. Ryan had been sentenced to probation and community service after the trial. She hadn't heard his name in months. "Tell him I have nothing to say," she said quickly. But later that night, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text. "Grace, please. It's not about us. It's about Lily. Meet me tomorrow. 1 hour. I swear it's important." She stared at the message for a long time before locking her screen. Part of her wanted to ignore it. The other part, the part that still carried faint scars of love and pity, hesitated. The next morning, she drove to a small cafe near the coast. Ryan was already there, sitting in a corner, his once polished charm replaced by exhaustion. He stood when she entered, his hands trembling slightly. "Grace, you look good." "Cut to the point," she said flatly, crossing her arms. Ryan exhaled. "I messed up. I know that. I've paid for it every single day. But this isn't about me." She eyed him carefully. "Then what is it about?" He pulled a crumpled envelope from his jacket and slid it across the table. Inside was a legal notice. Grace's eyes widened as she read it. Lana Brooks had filed an appeal from prison. She was claiming Ryan had framed her. Grace felt her stomach turn. "She's trying to rewrite history." Ryan nodded miserably. "She says she has new evidence. If the court accepts it, the case could reopen. And that means everything your father worked to rebuild could be questioned again." Grace's pulse quickened. "Why tell me this?" "Because I don't want to see you go through that again," he said quietly. "I want to help fix what I broke." Grace stared at him, searching his face for sincerity. "You want forgiveness?" He shook his head. "I don't deserve it. I just want to do one decent thing before I disappear." Before she could respond, her phone rang. It was Mason. "Grace, we just got word. Lana's legal team is trying to contact the press. She's planning a statement." Grace's expression hardened. "Then we stop her before she poisons the truth again." Ryan looked down. "You'll need someone who knows how she works. Let me help." Grace hesitated, torn between distrust and pragmatism. "You burned every bridge, Ryan." He nodded. "Then let me use the ashes to build something right for once." Grace sighed deeply, staring out the window at the storm clouds gathering over the ocean, because once again, her past wasn't finished with her, and this time, she would have to face it head-on. The courtroom in downtown Los Angeles was cold, quiet, and humming with tension. 6 months had passed since Lana Brooks was convicted of corporate fraud and cybercrime. Most people assumed her story had ended there, but Grace Turner knew better. Evil rarely vanished. It just waited for another chance. Grace sat in the gallery beside her father, William Turner, and their attorney, Harper Lee. Her hands were clasped tightly in her lap, but her eyes were steady. Across the room, guards escorted Lana into the courtroom. Even in a prison uniform, she carried herself with arrogance, her chin lifted, her smile faint but venomous. When the judge entered, everyone rose. The proceedings began. Lana's new defense attorney stood confidently. "Your Honor, my client was wrongfully convicted based on manipulated evidence provided by Mr. Ryan Carter. We have new material suggesting that Mr. Carter intentionally framed Miss Brooks to save himself." A murmur spread through the courtroom. Grace's stomach twisted. Ryan had promised to help them, not destroy them. The judge adjusted his glasses. "You claim to have proof?" "Yes, Your Honor," the attorney said. "Digital records recovered from a hidden drive show correspondence between Mr. Carter and third-party contractors implying he falsified documents to implicate my client." Lana's eyes flicked toward Grace with a slow, triumphant smirk. Harper stood immediately. "Objection, Your Honor. These so-called records have not been authenticated. The Turner legal team has verified that Miss Brooks herself created false digital files during the initial investigation." The judge raised his hand. "Enough. We will review the evidence." As the session recessed, Grace walked into the hallway, her pulse racing. William followed her. "Don't let her shake you, Grace. This is what she wants to make you afraid again." Grace turned to him, her eyes burning. "She's not getting my fear this time, Dad. She's getting my fight." Meanwhile, in a side room, Ryan Carter sat alone, waiting to be called as a witness. He had chosen to testify against Lana, but guilt still haunted him. When Harper entered, she glared at him. "You better tell the truth this time, Mr. Carter. One lie, and you'll bury yourself." Ryan nodded. "I'm done lying. I'll tell the court everything." Back inside, the judge called him to the stand. Ryan walked forward, hands trembling slightly. He took the oath, then met Lana's cold stare. "Mr. Carter," the prosecutor began, "did you or did you not conspire with Miss Brooks to commit corporate fraud?" Ryan exhaled shakily. "Yes, we did it together. But when she realized we'd been caught, she planned to make me take the fall." Lana slammed her hands on the table. "He's lying. He was obsessed with Grace. He wanted revenge." Ryan's voice cracked but stayed firm. "I was a fool, but at least I'm not a liar anymore. You're the reason everything fell apart." The judge ordered silence. Grace watched, her heart pounding. For the first time, she saw Ryan not as the man who broke her, but as someone finally trying to make it right. When the hearing ended, the judge spoke clearly. "The court will review the evidence, but for now, Miss Brooks's appeal is denied. She remains in custody pending investigation." Lana screamed, lunging toward Grace before guards restrained her. "You think you've won? I'll come back. You'll see." Grace didn't flinch. She simply stood, looked Lana in the eye, and whispered, "You already lost." And as Lana was dragged away, Grace realized that this time, the past wasn't haunting her, it was closing its final chapter. 3 months after Lana Brooks's final outburst in court, life began to calm once again for Grace Turner. The storm had finally passed, leaving behind scars but also strength. The world no longer saw her as a victim of betrayal, but as a woman who stood tall through fire and came out shining. The Turner-Hale partnership had grown stronger than anyone predicted. Their sustainable housing project, the Haven Initiative, was transforming neighborhoods across California. The media called Grace the Phoenix of Malibu, a symbol of perseverance and rebirth. Yet for her, it wasn't about fame. It was about peace. On a crisp spring morning, Grace stood at the groundbreaking ceremony of their newest site. Cameras flashed, reporters asked questions, and investors cheered. She wore a cream suit, her posture poised, baby Lily perched in Evelyn's arms nearby. When Grace stepped up to the microphone, she paused to look at the crowd. "A year ago," she began, her voice steady, "my life was in ruins. I lost faith in people, in love, and even in myself. But sometimes, what breaks you is what rebuilds you. This project isn't just about houses, it's about hope." Applause erupted, echoing across the construction site. From the front row, Alexander Hale smiled proudly. After the event, Alex approached her with a small grin. "You've gotten good at this," he said. Grace laughed softly. "I had a good teacher." "Hardly," he replied. "You just remembered who you were." They walked side by side through the quiet lot as workers packed up. The ocean breeze carried the smell of salt and earth. Grace stopped, turning to him. "It still surprises me," she said, "how something so broken can grow into something this beautiful." Alex nodded. "Because beauty grows in the cracks, not despite them." For a moment, their eyes met, an unspoken understanding bridging the space between them. Later that evening, Grace returned home to find William sitting on the patio, watching the sunset. "You did well today," he said, his voice filled with pride. She sat beside him, resting her head on his shoulder. "You were right, Dad. The pain did make me stronger." William smiled faintly. "It always does. But don't forget, it's okay to be happy now. You've earned it." Grace looked toward the horizon, the sky painted with gold and pink. "It feels strange, doesn't it, to live without fear?" "Strange," William agreed, "but good." Inside, Evelyn hummed softly to Lily, rocking her to sleep. The house was full of light and laughter again, sounds Grace had once thought she'd never hear. As night fell, Grace sat at her desk, signing the final paperwork, making her officially the CEO of Turner Construction. Her father's legacy was now hers to protect and grow. She placed her signature on the page, exhaled, and whispered, "A clean slate." Her phone buzzed a message from Alex. "Dinner tomorrow?" "Not business this time." Grace smiled, typing back. "Dinner sounds nice." Outside, the ocean waves rolled gently under the moonlight. Grace closed her eyes, letting the sound wash over her. The past no longer haunted her, it had shaped her. And as she drifted to sleep that night, Grace Turner knew that for the first time, Her story wasn't about survival anymore. It was about beginning again with love, purpose, and peace. Woo! The evening sky over San Francisco shimmered with golden light as the sun dipped below the skyline. Grace Turner stepped out of the black car, her heels clicking softly against the marble pavement outside the Hale Tower. She had been invited to dinner with Alexander Hale, but tonight felt different. There was a tension in the air, gentle but charged, as if something important was waiting to unfold. The elevator opened to the private rooftop restaurant, empty except for one table set beneath a canopy of twinkling lights. Soft music drifted through the air. Grace paused, breath catching in her throat. "Alex?" she called. He appeared from behind a pillar, dressed in a tailored black suit, his usual calm confidence softened by something more vulnerable. "You're right on time," he said, smiling. Grace laughed lightly, still looking around in awe. "You rented out the entire rooftop? For a business dinner?" Alex's smile deepened. "Tonight's not business." She tilted her head. "Then what is it?" He motioned for her to sit. "A celebration. For everything you've overcome. For everything you've built." The waiter served wine and disappeared quietly, leaving them alone under the stars. Grace looked across the table, studying Alex. "You're acting strange," she teased. "Strange?" he echoed. "Maybe. But I've been planning this night for months." Grace set down her glass. "Planning what?" Alex leaned forward, his voice lowering. "Do you remember the first time we met? You were nervous, pretending not to be, and I thought, there's a woman who's seen the worst of life and still chooses to stand tall." Grace blushed softly. "I remember thinking you talked too much." He laughed, then grew serious. "Grace, you've rebuilt not just a company but yourself. You turned pain into strength, betrayal into wisdom, and you taught me something I never thought I'd learn again." Her heartbeat quickened. "What's that?" "That love isn't weakness, it's courage." He stood slowly, walking around to her side of the table. Grace froze as he reached into his jacket pocket and knelt down on one knee. The city lights flickered around them, and for a moment, the whole world seemed to hold its breath. "Grace Turner," he said softly, holding a small velvet box. "You've given the world your strength. You've given your daughter your heart. I'd be honored if you'd give me the chance to give you peace, laughter, and a love that never hurts." Grace's hand flew to her mouth, tears flooding her eyes. "Alex." He opened the box inside. A simple, elegant diamond glowed in the candlelight. "Will you marry me?" For a long, beautiful moment, Grace couldn't speak. All the heartbreak, all the pain, all the lonely nights came rushing back and then vanished, replaced by something pure. She nodded through her tears. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will." Alex slipped the ring onto her finger, then stood, pulling her into his arms. The city around them blurred into light and warmth. As fireworks burst over the bay, Grace rested her head on his chest, smiling through her tears. "I never thought I'd find this again." Alex kissed her forehead. "You didn't find it," he said softly. "You created it." And for the first time since that terrible night years ago, Grace Turner felt what she had once thought impossible, unshakable happiness. The morning sun bathed Napa Valley in golden light, turning the vineyards into a sea of shimmering green. It was the perfect day, clear skies, soft breeze, the kind of quiet that felt like a blessing after years of storms. Guests gathered in the garden of a white stone villa, laughter and piano music filling the air. Today, Grace Turner was getting married to the man who helped her believe in love again. Inside the bridal suite, Grace stood before a tall mirror, wearing an ivory gown that flowed like silk over her curves. The lace sleeves shimmered with delicate pearls, and her hair was swept into soft waves. Evelyn fastened a diamond bracelet around her wrist, the same one Grace had worn at her first wedding. But this time, it didn't feel like a reminder of pain. It felt like proof of survival. "You look beautiful, sweetheart," Evelyn said, her eyes shining. "Your mother-in-law would be proud." Grace smiled through the mirror. "Mom, I'm nervous." Evelyn laughed gently. "If you weren't, it wouldn't be real love." There was a soft knock at the door. William stepped in, dressed in a tailored navy suit. His eyes glistened with emotion as he looked at his daughter. "You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen," he said quietly. Grace turned, hugging him tightly. "I wouldn't be here without you, Dad." He smiled, his voice thick. "You found your strength long before I stepped in. I just helped you remember it." Down in the garden, guests began to take their seats among rows of white roses. Olivia, radiant as the maid of honor, adjusted the veil and whispered, "Ready to walk into your new forever?" Grace took a deep breath. "Ready." The music began soft strings, carrying a melody of hope. As Grace stepped down the aisle on her father's arm, every head turned. The late afternoon sun caught the diamond ring on her finger, casting 1,000 sparkles. Baby Lily, sitting on Noah's lap in the front row, waved her tiny hand, giggling. At the altar, Alexander Hale waited in a crisp black tuxedo, his eyes locked on Grace. He looked at her as if she were the only person in the world. When she reached him, William kissed her forehead and whispered, "He's the right one, Grace. I can see it." As the officiant began, the breeze carried the scent of lavender and wine from the nearby hills. Grace's heart swelled as Alex took her hands. "I once thought love was a weakness," she said softly, her voice trembling. "But you showed me it's the greatest strength of all. You've given me peace, laughter, and a family I never thought I'd have again." Alex smiled, eyes shining. "And you've given me purpose, Grace. You taught me that the best kind of love doesn't rescue you, it rebuilds you." When they exchanged rings, the crowd rose in applause, some wiping tears. William held Evelyn's hand, pride radiating from both of them. As Grace and Alex shared their first kiss as husband and wife, the vineyard erupted in cheers and music. The sky turned golden, fireworks bursting in soft pastels above the valley. Grace looked up, tears glimmering. "It feels like a dream," she whispered. Alex held her close. "No," he said gently. "It feels like destiny." And as the night wrapped them in starlight, Grace Turner's story of pain finally transformed into one of redemption, love, and eternal peace. 3 years had passed since that golden evening in Napa Valley, when Grace Turner became Grace Hale. Life had taken on a rhythm that was calm, steady, and deeply fulfilling. The pain of her past had faded into a distant memory, replaced by laughter, tiny footsteps, and the joy of a family built from healing instead of hurt. The Hale estate in San Francisco buzzed with morning light. Baby Lily, now 3 years old, was running barefoot through the garden, her curls bouncing as she chased a butterfly. Grace followed behind, holding a cup of coffee and laughing softly. Her second child, baby Ethan, only 6 months old, cooed in his stroller nearby. "Careful, sweetheart," Grace called as Lily stretched out her hand toward the butterfly. "I almost got it, Mommy." Lily giggled, her voice bright as sunshine. From the patio, Alexander Hale watched the scene unfold, a tender smile on his face. He walked over and slipped his arm around Grace's waist. "You know," he said quietly, "this is exactly what I dreamed of when I asked you to marry me." Grace looked up at him, her eyes glowing. "You dreamed of chaos and sleepless nights." He laughed. "No, I dreamed of peace. Of this, our little world." Inside the house, William and Evelyn were visiting for the weekend. William sat in the study with Noah, now head of Turner Innovations, while Evelyn baked pies with Olivia in the kitchen. The house felt alive, full of the warmth that Grace had once feared she'd never feel again. After breakfast, the family gathered in the living room. William lifted baby Ethan into his arms, rocking him gently. "He's got your eyes, Grace," he said, smiling proudly. "And Alex's stubbornness," she added, laughing. William's expression softened. "You've built something beautiful, Grace. I hope you know how proud I am of you." Grace sat beside him, taking his hand. "I do, Dad, but I wouldn't have made it here without you. You taught me to fight back when life tried to break me." He squeezed her hand gently. "No, sweetheart. You taught yourself. I just gave you the push." Later that afternoon, Grace walked along the cliffside path behind their home. The ocean stretched endlessly before her, the waves rolling in slow, steady rhythm. Alex joined her, baby Ethan in his arms, Lily skipping ahead. Sometimes I still think about everything that happened, Grace admitted softly. Not with pain anymore, just gratitude. Because if it hadn't, I wouldn't be here, Alex nodded. Every storm has its purpose. Yours brought you home. Grace smiled, leaning her head against his shoulder. Home, she repeated. I never thought I'd say that word and mean it again. As the sun dipped lower, Lily ran back toward them, holding a seashell in her hand. Mommy, Daddy, look, it's a heart. Grace knelt down, taking the shell and showing it to Alex. It really was shaped like a heart, carved perfectly by time and waves. Alex kissed her forehead. See? Even the ocean knows your story. Grace looked at her family, the man who loved her without condition, the children who were her miracles, and the life she'd rebuilt from ruins. And in that moment, she realized she hadn't just survived, she had created something unbreakable. A family built on love, forgiveness, and the quiet power of starting over. 10 years later, the Turner-Hale legacy had become a household name across America. What started as a single act of courage had grown into a foundation of empowerment for women, families, and communities. Grace Hale, once a broken wife betrayed in the most public way possible, now stood as one of the most respected business leaders and philanthropists in the country. It was a bright spring morning in Los Angeles. The auditorium buzzed with excitement. Grace stood backstage, adjusting the microphone on her elegant navy suit. She was about to deliver the keynote address at the annual Women of Courage Summit, a conference inspired by her own story. The banner above the stage read, "Resilience is the strongest foundation." Alex stood near the side curtain, smiling proudly. "You've done this speech 100 times, and you still look nervous," he teased. Grace laughed softly. "Because every time I do, I remember the woman I used to be, the one who almost didn't make it here." Alex touched her shoulder. "That woman built this one. Don't ever forget that." She kissed him quickly before walking out into the lights. The audience erupted in applause. Hundreds of women, executives, mothers, survivors, looked up at her with admiration. Grace began, her voice clear but warm. 10 years ago, I was terrified. My life had fallen apart, and I didn't think I had the strength to rebuild it. But strength doesn't appear when everything is perfect. It appears when everything is broken, and you decide to stand anyway. The crowd fell silent, every word hanging in the air. "I was betrayed, humiliated, and left alone," she continued. "But through that pain, I learned something powerful. Our worth is not defined by who leaves us, but by what we choose to build after they're gone." Applause broke out, rippling through the hall like a wave. Later, after the event, a young woman approached Grace backstage, her eyes filled with tears. "Mrs. Hale, I left an abusive marriage last year. I saw your story online. You gave me the courage to walk away." Grace took her hands gently. "You gave yourself that courage, sweetheart. I just reminded you, it was there." Outside, William and Evelyn sat together in the front row, clapping as the crowd chanted Grace's name. William's hair had turned silver, but his eyes still gleamed with pride. "She's everything her mother dreamed she'd be," he whispered. Evelyn smiled softly. "And everything you raised her to be." That evening, back at their San Francisco home, Grace tucked Lily and Ethan, now both in grade school, into bed. Lily yawned, her voice sleepy. "Mommy, when I grow up, I want to build houses like you and Grandpa." Grace smiled. "Then you'll build homes filled with love, my little architect." Downstairs, she joined Alex on the balcony. The city lights shimmered below them. "Do you ever think about how far we've come?" she asked. "Every day," he said. "You turned pain into purpose. That's your legacy." Grace looked out into the horizon. "No," she whispered. "Our legacy." The wind carried her words softly across the night, the words of a woman who had once been broken but had learned to rise, rebuild, and inspire. And somewhere deep inside, Grace Hale knew the truth. Strength wasn't something she inherited. It was something she created and left behind for others to find. 20 years had passed since that fateful night in Malibu, the night that changed Grace Turner's life forever. The woman who once stood trembling under humiliation had grown into a legend, her name synonymous with courage, dignity, and renewal. Her story had been told in boardrooms, classrooms, and even documentaries, but today she stood somewhere far more meaningful back where it all began. The Malibu estate had been restored, not as a home, but as the headquarters of the Grace Foundation, an organization she created to help women rebuild their lives after abuse and betrayal. The grand staircase, the same one where she'd once stood shattered, was now lined with photographs of survivors who had found hope again. The irony wasn't lost on her. Grace walked slowly through the marble halls, her heels echoing softly. The sun poured in through the tall windows, turning the air golden. She paused by the mirror in the foyer, the same mirror she'd looked into 20 years ago before her world collapsed. Back then, she'd seen fear. Now, she saw peace. "Mom?" Lily's voice echoed from down the hall. Grace turned to see her daughter now, a poised young architect in her 20s approaching with blueprints in hand. "The city finally approved the shelter expansion project," Lily said, smiling. "We can start construction next month." Grace's heart swelled with pride. "You're carrying it forward," she said softly. "That's all I ever wanted." Lily grinned. "You built the blueprint, Mom. I'm just adding the next chapter." Outside, the garden buzzed with laughter as guests gathered for the Foundation's 20th anniversary gala. William and Evelyn sat together, older now but still radiant. Alex stood near the stage, coordinating with the event team. He caught Grace's eye and smiled the same smile that had anchored her through every storm. When she stepped onto the stage, the applause thundered through the courtyard. Grace looked out at the sea of faces, friends, survivors, leaders, and even her own children. 20 years ago, she began, I thought my life had ended. I was broken, humiliated, and afraid. But what I didn't know then was that endings can be the start of something extraordinary. That night didn't destroy me, it introduced me to the woman I was meant to become. The crowd listened in silence. Even the ocean seemed to pause beyond the cliffs. I stand here today not as a victim, but as proof that pain can become power. Every scar tells a story of survival, and every woman who's ever been told she's not enough, look at me. You are more than enough. You always were. Applause rose again, people standing, some crying. Alex walked up, placing his arm around her. William wiped a tear from his eye. Evelyn clapped softly, her heart full. Later that evening, after the lights dimmed and the guests departed, Grace and Alex stood alone on the terrace, overlooking the moonlit sea. "This view never gets old," he said quietly. Grace smiled. "Neither does gratitude." She leaned her head on his shoulder, watching the waves shimmer. "It's strange, isn't it? I used to look at this ocean and see my pain. Now I see peace." Alex kissed her temple. "That's because you turned the tide, Grace." She smiled faintly. "No, I just learned how to swim." And as the waves rolled against the shore, Grace Turner Hale's story came full circle, a journey from heartbreak to healing, from silence to strength, and from pain to a legacy that would outlast her name. So, the story has finally come full circle. My dear friends, you're still here, aren't you? If you've stayed with me until this moment, maybe something deep inside your heart has been touched, just a little reminder that healing is possible for all of us. Grace's journey wasn't just about revenge or success, it was about finding peace after the storm, learning to let go, and choosing love again. Like the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." And that's exactly what Grace did. Life will break you sometimes, but you always have the power to rebuild stronger, wiser, and softer. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Let's keep building a community where stories heal, inspire, and remind us we are never truly alone.